The colonies on the edge of the Orion sector were quiet that morning. Dusty red plains stretched under a pale sun, and the hum of distant machinery filled the air. Life in these faraway outposts was simple but dangerous. Every day was a struggle against storms, failing equipment, and isolation. Yet humanity thrived here, stubborn and clever as always, carving survival from a place that should have been impossible. Captain Elara Voss stood at the edge of the main landing platform, her boots scuffing the metal as she watched the horizon. Her eyes were sharp, scanning patterns others might miss, noting the tiniest irregularities in the atmosphere. To the colonists, she looked calm, even detached, but inside, her mind was always racing. Every signal, every faint anomaly could be a clue. She had learned that the universe did not hand out survival. It had to be taken. The warning came as quietly as a shadow moving across a wall. The Virathi, a species humans had only seen in brief reconnaissance images, had sent a transmission to all human colonies in the Orion sector. It was simple, cold and precise. This is your last warning. Leave the sector or face the consequences. She is hunting. Colonists read the message and murmured among themselves. Some laughed nervously, thinking it a bluff, a scare tactic from a superior species trying to keep humans out of their space. Others whispered of old stories, tales of alien hunters who could anticipate moves before anyone even thought them. But Elara didn't laugh. She felt the weight of those words, a cold prickle along her spine, and she knew instinctively that this was no ordinary threat. A scout ship approached the platform, its engine thrumming low and steady. Lieutenant Mara Kessler, a sharp and loyal officer, stepped out. Her hair was tied back, her uniform crisp, but her eyes betrayed unease. "Captain," she said, voice low, "we've received new signals near the asteroid belt. Strange patterns."
I think they're watching us." Elara nodded slowly, scanning the data Mara had brought.
The readings were subtle, almost insignificant, except that they repeated in a pattern too deliberate to be natural. "They're observing," Elara said. "They want to know exactly what we do before they act. This isn't random. Someone is studying us, and I know who." The colonists didn't understand. They were used to threats they could measure with numbers, weapons, and fortifications. This was different. This was intelligence. Calculating. Patient. Alara's mind worked through the possibilities, considering what kind of being would leave such a precise message, then watch silently, testing reactions. There was one conclusion she could not escape. The hunter was not chasing everyone. She was chasing her. Elara gathered her small team, veterans and civilians alike, and outlined a plan. "We don't run," she said. "We watch, we learn, and we respond. If she wants a hunt, we will give her one she didn't expect." There were nods, hesitant but determined. Humans were not born to be prey for long. The Virathi might be stronger, faster, and more technologically advanced, but humans had something no alien could replicate: instinct, unpredictability, and courage. The first encounter came sooner than anyone expected. A scout vessel sent to probe the asteroid belt went silent. Communications vanished in the middle of a routine transmission. Panic rippled through the colony, fear gripping even those who had faced harsh winters and mechanical failures without flinching. Elara didn't panic. She moved immediately, analyzing the last coordinates and the faint traces left behind in space. Every line, every flicker of energy, told her a story. When she traced the path to a cluster of floating asteroids, she found the remnants of the Scout. Its hull was torn almost surgically with no signs of conventional weapons. The attack wasn't about destruction. It was about precision, observation, and control. Whoever had done this had thought several steps ahead, anticipating every move. Alara's stomach tightened. This was exactly why the Virathi had warned them. This wasn't about territory or resources. This was about the hunt. Back at the colony command center, debates erupted. Military officers argued for retreat, for evacuation, for surrender. Scientists suggested sending automated drones instead of risking human lives, but Elara stood firm. "If we leave," she said, "we give her exactly what she wants. We become prey. But if we learn, adapt, and act, we become hunters too, and I intend to prove it." The colony had no choice but to follow her lead. They prepared defenses, not in the hope of overpowering the alien, but in the hope of outsmarting it. Elara led simulations of potential ambushes, trained scouts to recognize patterns in energy readings, and taught colonists how to think like a predator. She emphasized observation over strength, improvisation over firepower. Every human was a piece of the strategy, every mind a potential advantage. Nights were tense. The pale moons cast long shadows across the settlement, and every rustle or hum set nerves on edge. Elara herself barely slept, preferring to patrol the perimeter, watch the sensors, and map out every anomaly. Her instincts told her the hunter was near, studying, learning from every human movement. She didn't see it as fear. She saw it as a challenge. Humans had survived impossible odds before, and she believed they could do it again. A breakthrough came when Mara pointed out a pattern in the energy readings near the asteroid belt. "Captain," she said, voice shaking with excitement, "these readings repeat every 12 hours. It's almost like it's testing us, mapping our responses." Elara leaned over the data display, eyes narrowing. "Exactly," she said. "She isn't attacking randomly. She's learning how we react. And once she understands, she will strike."
Elara devised a countermeasure.
She ordered a small team to set decoy signals and false energy signatures along a predictable path, hoping to trick the hunter into revealing itself. The plan was risky. If it failed, it could cost lives. But Elara had learned long ago that waiting and doing nothing was far more dangerous. The decoys worked better than expected. Sensors detected movement that didn't match any human vessel. Shadows flickered across asteroid surfaces, disappearing before the cameras could fully capture them. And then, a brief transmission appeared on an unmonitored channel. No words, just a sound. An alien hum that seemed almost alive. It was the hunter. It was close. Elara's pulse quickened, but her mind stayed sharp. She analyzed the sound, noting its frequency, timing, and pattern. "She's testing us," Elara said softly. "Every move we make," she observes, "but we are not prey." "Not today." She smiled faintly. "We will turn this around. We will show her that humans do not yield. We adapt. We survive. And we fight back." By the time the second night fell, the colony was buzzing with a new energy. Fear had shifted to determination. Families huddled close, but the adults moved with purpose, guided by Elara's example. Scouts reported subtle changes in the asteroids, signs that the hunter had noticed the traps. But instead of retreating, the humans adjusted, learning from every encounter, anticipating the alien's next move. Elara watched from the observation deck as the moons reflected off the metallic hulls scattered around the colony. She felt a strange exhilaration. This was more than survival. This was the beginning of a contest of wits, courage, and instinct. Humanity had faced the impossible before and had always found a way to rise. And now, in the cold void of space, with a predator they could barely comprehend, they would do it again. Somewhere in the darkness, the hunter was watching. But she was not prepared for what she would discover. Humans were clever, unpredictable, and stubborn. And in Elara, they had a leader who could see patterns no alien could anticipate. The hunter may have thought she held all the advantage, but the first step had been taken. Humanity was ready to fight not just to survive, but to prove that even in the face of perfection, instinct, courage, and intellect could turn the tables. Elara felt the weight of responsibility, but also the thrill of the challenge. The Orion sector would test them, push them to the edge, and demand everything they had. But she knew the truth deep in her bones. The hunter might have underestimated humans, and they were about to demonstrate that, against all odds, even the fiercest predator could be outsmarted. Night deepened over the colony, the hum of generators mingling with the wind. The stars stretched endlessly overhead, indifferent and infinite. Alara stood at the edge of the platform once more, her eyes scanning the distant asteroid belt. She whispered, almost to herself, "Let her come. We are ready. And she will see. We are not prey. We are hunters too." The silence that followed felt heavy, but not oppressive. Somewhere in the void, a pair of alien eyes, calculating, patient, and deadly, watched the humans below. Somewhere the hunter prepared to strike. But Alara had already moved. She had already planned. She had already demonstrated without a single shot fired that humans were capable of more than mere survival. They were capable of cunning, bravery, and adaptation. And in that quiet moment, as the colony settled into tense anticipation, Alara knew the first part of the challenge was won. Humanity had survived the warning. They had learned. They had adapted. And they would show the hunter that underestimating humans, especially her, was the gravest mistake any being could make. The game had begun. The Orion sector was quiet. Almost too quiet. The colony had held its breath since the first warning, every human aware that danger was near. Captain Alara Voss moved among her people, her presence calm but purposeful. She didn't need to give orders. The colonists had already learned to follow her lead. Every eye followed her movements, every mind tuned to her strategy. Humans had survived the void before, but this time, the stakes were higher. The hunter was patient, clever, and relentless, and Alara knew that she had to be one step ahead at all times. Bouts returned from the asteroid belt with unsettling reports. Shadows flitted across sensors, moving faster than any human ship could manage. Energy patterns shifted as if something alive, intelligent, and unseen was calculating every move the colony made. Alara leaned over the console, studying the data. Each anomaly was a clue, each repetition a piece of the puzzle. She traced the signals meticulously, noting timing, frequency, and irregularities. Humans might have been new to the Orion sector, but they were capable of understanding complexity in ways machines could not.
"They're adapting," Mara said, eyes wide as she compared the latest readings with the previous ones.
They changed their approach. Every time we set a trap, they avoid it.
"It's like they're learning from us as fast as we're learning from them." Alara didn't look up.
Of course they are. That's what hunters do. But we're not helpless prey. They may be fast, but they can't anticipate human unpredictability. They haven't faced a mind like mine before, and I intend to show them why humans survive against impossible odds. Plans were made quickly. The colony retrofitted old mining drones into decoys, floating through the asteroid belt to bait the hunter. Humans wore adaptive armor designed to mimic natural asteroid shadows, blending into the terrain. Sensors were hidden, false signals were broadcast, and every detail was intended to confuse the predator. The more predictable the humans appeared, the more likely the hunter would reveal herself. Alara led the strike team personally. Her crew followed with silent determination. Each ship moved with precision, shadows slipping among the floating rocks. The hunter had to be near. The energy readings were growing sharper, more defined. She was watching, learning, testing. And now, humans were about to test her in return. A flicker of movement caught Alara's eye, too fast for the human scanners to detect. "There," she whispered. The fleet slowed, holding position behind the jagged rocks. The alien ship, or whatever it was, had revealed itself, darting between the asteroids with a grace and speed that defied human perception. "Engage decoys!" Alara ordered. Machines powered forward, broadcasting false signals. The hunter hesitated for a moment, almost imperceptibly, then adjusted her trajectory. Alara studied the movement carefully, noting the reaction, recording every detail. The hunter had taken the bait. The first clash was sudden and precise. The alien ship lashed out, a whip of energy cutting through space, striking one of the decoys. The explosion sent shrapnel spinning across the asteroid field. The team dodged instinctively, using rocks for cover. Ilara's mind was a blur of calculations, probabilities, and contingencies. Every move the hunter made, she anticipated, countered, and turned into information. "They're testing us," she said calmly. "Every strike, every feint, they're learning our limits. But limits can be stretched, and humans are masters at adaptation." She watched as Mara adjusted their formation, predicting the next strike with uncanny accuracy.
"Exactly," Elara said.
"We are not just surviving. We are teaching her what humans can do." The hunter's next move was bold. She surged forward, attempting to flank the human fleet. Her speed was terrifying, but the humans had learned to anticipate, using misdirection and hidden signals. Ships twisted and turned among the jagged rocks, creating a confusing pattern of motion. The alien sensors, advanced as they were, struggled to interpret the chaos. For every attack, there was a counter. Ilara demonstrated the brilliance of human improvisation, turning the hunter's precision against her. By predicting her reactions, humans were no longer just defending. They were controlling the engagement. Every strike the hunter attempted was met with a maneuver that she had not expected, a tactic no machine could calculate. But victory was not easy. One human ship was damaged, barely escaping a direct hit. The crew inside fought with courage, keeping the vessel steady while retreating behind natural cover. Ilara felt a pang of concern. Every loss reminded her that the hunter was still superior in raw power. Strength alone, however, had never defined human survival. Strategy, intelligence, and courage had carried them through greater dangers. Hours passed in tense engagement. Neither side took decisive control, but each had learned. The hunter adapted to human unpredictability, while humans became sharper, faster, and more coordinated. Ilara watched the energy readings spike and fall, each fluctuation a story of battle, a sign of intellect clashing with instinct. Humans were proving, for the first time, that the hunter could be outmaneuvered. In a quiet moment, floating amid the dark void, Ilara transmitted a message to the colony. "We've learned her patterns. She isn't just hunting random targets. She's focused on me." Every move she makes is a test, a study, a challenge. But we are not afraid. Humans have always thrived against predators, against odds that seemed impossible. And now, we show her why. Mara's voice was low, reverent. "Do you think she realizes it? That we are dangerous?" Ilara smiled faintly. "She is about to learn."
"Humans are always dangerous."
Not because of strength, but because we think, adapt, and act. She may be fast, but she cannot match a mind that refuses to be trapped. The engagement escalated as the hunter tried to retreat, leaving the asteroid field as quickly as she had entered. But humans were ready. Ilara orchestrated a series of countermeasures, using the terrain, debris, and modified drones to force the hunter into a narrow pass. The hunter paused, calculating, then shifted, her movements precise and deadly. And then Ilara struck, using a combination of decoys, hidden mines, and sudden, unpredictable maneuvers. She created the first human victory. The hunter was forced to retreat, her calculations disrupted, her attack foiled. Humans had survived an encounter that no one thought possible. The victory was small, but it was significant. It proved that humans could fight back, that they could adapt faster than any predator expected. Colonists celebrated quietly, aware of the danger that still lurked but emboldened by their resilience. Humans were more than prey. They were survivors, thinkers, and fighters. Yet even in the celebration, Ilara felt the weight of understanding. The hunter had left a message in her wake, a signal embedded in the energy fluctuations. The hunter has revealed herself. It was a warning, a challenge, and an acknowledgement all at once. The hunter knew that humans were clever. She knew they could adapt, and she now understood that she faced a species that might not only survive her tests, but surpass them. Alara gathered her team, laying out the next phase. "We have won the first engagement," she said, voice firm. "But this is only the beginning. She will adapt, learn from this, and come again. We must anticipate, innovate, and push harder.
Humans do not yield. Humans do not surrender."
And we will prove that in every encounter she has underestimated us." Scouts returned with further readings, showing subtle movements in distant sectors. Alara studied the patterns, recognizing the aliens' calculations and the way she predicted human responses. But there was also a flaw, a sign of hesitation. The hunter had not anticipated human improvisation, the way humans could think outside patterns and rules. That flaw was small, but it was enough. By the time the second day ended, the Orion sector was alive with human determination. Colonists repaired, recalibrated, and prepared for the inevitable next encounter. Children and families moved with quiet purpose, learning from the adults' focus, absorbing the courage that defined them. Humans had become more than a colony. They had become a force, united under Alara's guidance. Night fell again, pale moons casting long shadows across the barren landscapes. Alara moved along the platform, checking sensor readings and listening to communications. Every crew member was alert, every mind engaged. The hunter was out there, studying, waiting, calculating. But humans were ready. They had survived the first clash. They had adapted. They had demonstrated that strength alone did not define victory. Alara looked at Mara. She thinks she's the predator. But she hasn't realized yet. I am the hunter too.
Humans are always the hunters eventually. We see patterns she cannot.
We act in ways she cannot predict. And we will not be defeated. Mara nodded, understanding the weight of the words. Then we continue. We prepare, we fight smart, and we win. The stars stretched endlessly above them, indifferent and infinite. The hunter was out there, observing, learning, preparing for the next strike. But humans had learned too. They had seen the hunter's patterns, predicted her moves, and adapted. They had survived the first test, and they were ready for the next. Alara felt a thrill run through her. The Orion sector was no longer just a frontier of survival. It was a battlefield of intellect, courage, and instinct. Humans had shown, for the first time, that they could match the hunter, and in that truth lay the promise of victory. Somewhere in the darkness, the hunter paused, recalculating, realizing that the humans were no longer easy prey. Somewhere, the Virathi considered her next move, knowing that the hunt had changed. The hunter would test them again, but humans had proven that they could adapt, survive, and even triumph against overwhelming odds. Malara stood at the edge of the platform, looking at the distant asteroid field where the first encounter had taken place.
We have survived the first strike.
But the game is only beginning. We will teach her that humans are not to be underestimated. We hunters, thinkers, and survivors. And we will show her that underestimating humanity is a fatal mistake. The Orion sector was quiet once more, but the silence was not peace. It was anticipation, tension, and promise. Humans had faced the impossible and had emerged sharper, stronger, and smarter. The hunter had been forced to retreat, but the lesson was clear. Humanity could fight back, and Captain Alara Voss would lead the way. The first battle had been won, but the hunt was far from over. The Orion sector had become a maze of strategy, intelligence, and tension. Humanity was no longer just surviving. They were learning, adapting, and preparing to strike back. Captain Alara Voss moved through the colony with a calm urgency, her mind always several steps ahead. The hunter had underestimated them once, but she would not make that mistake again. Humans were clever, unpredictable, and persistent, and Alara intended to show the Virathi that they were not prey. The asteroid belt had become a proving ground. Alara studied every movement, every energy fluctuation, every trace left behind by the alien predator. Her team of scouts reported sightings and subtle anomalies, each one a potential clue. For the first time, humans were beginning to see patterns in the hunter's behavior. She was calculating, patient, and precise, but even she could not anticipate every human decision. Alara had realized that the key to survival was turning unpredictability into a weapon. "We've mapped the likely ambush points," Mara said, her fingers tracing points on a holographic display. "If we set bait here, here, and here, she will be forced to reveal herself again. We can anticipate her movements, but we still need to make her think she's in control." "Exactly. The hunter is clever, but humans are smarter when we cooperate. Every colonist, every crew member, every resource is part of the plan. She wants to study us, but we will study her. First, we will turn this hunt into our advantage." The plan was audacious. Humans would use a derelict asteroid mining station as a trap. The station had been abandoned for decades, its corridors and storage bays full of unstable equipment and supplies. Alara had spent hours analyzing its layout, determining how to create choke points, ambush areas, and escape routes. The idea was simple in principle. Lure the hunter in, isolate her, and force her into human-made traps where technology alone would not save her. The team moved quickly, setting charges, hiding sensors, and creating false energy signals to mimic human presence in other sectors. Every action was precise, calculated to mislead the predator into believing she was always one step ahead. Humans had learned to think like the hunter, predicting her decisions and turning them against her. It was a dangerous gamble, but one they were ready to take. As night fell over the Orion sector, the trap was ready. Scouts monitored every approach, their sensors trained on the shadows between asteroids. Alara stood at the command console, her eyes scanning dozens of feeds simultaneously.
"She's coming,"
she said, a faint smile on her face. "She's curious. She can't resist testing us again." The first signs were subtle. Energy fluctuations in the belt, tiny movements of debris, changes in light reflection across the rocks. The hunter was near, assessing the situation, calculating every variable. But humans were ready. They had studied her, adapted, and now they would act. Suddenly, a ship appeared, gliding silently through the asteroid field. It was sleek, faster than any human vessel, and its design spoke of predatory intent. The hunter had arrived. Alara's pulse quickened, but her mind remained calm. She had anticipated this moment. Every move the hunter made, humans had prepared for. Every reaction, every strike had been calculated. The engagement began with subtle attacks. The hunter probed the trap, sending out energy pulses to detect hidden vessels and mines. Humans responded with misdirection, false signals, and decoy drones. Each encounter forced her to adapt, each adaptation making her more predictable in the ways humans had planned for. Alara moved through the command center, giving orders that were almost invisible in their execution. Deploy the decoys to Sector 7. Adjust energy readings in Sectors 3 and 5. Keep the passageways clear, but maintain the illusion of human presence in every corridor. Her team followed flawlessly. Humans had learned to act with intuition, improvisation, and teamwork. Every small success built confidence, proving that even the most advanced predator could be challenged. The hunter reacted with increasing aggression. She lashed out at drones, striking them with precision, but she had fallen into the trap. Explosions rocked the asteroid station, and sensors detected temporary interference in her systems. The hunter was forced to adjust, to reconsider, and in doing so, revealed her position.
Humans had predicted this.
Alara led a small strike team to intercept, moving silently through the station's corridors. Their steps were careful, deliberate, but their presence was masked by environmental noise and false energy signals. They advanced like shadows, always watching, always learning. Every movement was a lesson in anticipation, every step a demonstration of human ingenuity. The Hunter's first direct encounter with humans came suddenly. A narrow corridor forced her ship to slow, and humans had placed hidden energy barriers that disrupted her movements. She attempted to retreat, but the station's layout combined with human improvisation forced her deeper into the trap. She was powerful, but she was no longer in control. Humans had created conditions she could not predict. Ilara and her team engaged with precision. They did not attack recklessly. Every action was calculated, designed to test, distract, and mislead. The Hunter lashed out, striking walls and equipment, but humans adapted instantly, using the environment to their advantage. One of her energy strikes triggered a hidden charge, sending debris across her path and forcing her to recalculate her approach. Every moment the Hunter struggled, humans observed, learned, and exploited. Hours passed in tense engagement. The station shook with explosions and energy discharges, but humans remained composed. They were not just surviving. They were controlling the battlefield. Ilara directed movements like a master strategist, anticipating the Hunter's adjustments, predicting her reactions, and staying one step ahead. At one point, the Hunter attempted to isolate Ilara's strike team, using a sudden burst of speed to flank them. But humans had prepared for this. Hidden sensors and predictive maneuvers allowed them to counter, forcing her into a narrow corridor lined with concealed traps. Energy nets deployed, forcing her to divert, while drones simulated human presence elsewhere. The Hunter realized too late that she had been funneled into a situation she could not dominate. Ilara moved closer, her voice calm over the comms. "You may be strong, fast, and precise, but you cannot anticipate everything. Humans are unpredictable. We learn, adapt, and act. You are clever, but we are cleverer." The Hunter paused, her sensors flickering, her calculations delayed. She had not expected such rapid adaptation, such seamless coordination. For the first time, she faced not prey, but a predator of equal cunning. Humans had learned her patterns, anticipated her tactics, and created an environment where she could not operate freely. It was a turning point. The Hunter retreated temporarily, regrouping in the open belt, but humans had proven something vital. They could challenge her, disrupt her plans, and force her into mistakes. The psychological edge had shifted. The Hunter had underestimated the human mind, the human spirit, and human ingenuity. Ilara returned to the command console, reviewing every data stream, every energy signature. "This is what I've been saying," she told Mara. "She may be a predator, but humans are hunters too. Every move she makes teaches us something new. Every adaptation she tries can be anticipated, countered, and used against her." Mara nodded, understanding fully. "We've turned the tables. We're not just surviving anymore. We're shaping the battlefield." Humans in the colony had begun to see themselves differently. They had faced a predator far superior in raw power and survived. They had learned to anticipate, improvise, and coordinate. The Orion sector was no longer just a frontier. It was a proving ground, a place where humans could demonstrate resilience, courage, and intellect. Elaru knew the Hunter would return. She always did. But now, humans were ready. They had adapted, learned, and evolved in ways the predator could not predict. The next encounter would not just be survival. It would be a test of human ingenuity and strength, a challenge they were prepared to meet. By the end of the engagement, the colony was alive with energy and focus. Humans repaired damage, recalibrated defenses, and refined strategies. Every individual understood their role. Every mind engaged in anticipation of the Hunter's next move. It was a system of collective intelligence, a demonstration of humanity's greatest strength, the ability to think, adapt, and act in unison. Elara stood at the observation platform, watching the asteroid field where the hunter had retreated. She felt a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. The hunter had tested them, but humans had risen to the challenge. They had survived, adapted, and even gained the advantage of knowledge. She whispered to herself.
She thought she could control us, predict us, dominate us.
She was wrong. Humans are not prey. We are hunters, and we always will be. The Orion sector was quiet once more, but the calm was deceptive. Humans had demonstrated that they could challenge the predator, but the battle was far from over. The hunter would return, more calculating, more determined. But humans had shown that intellect, courage, and adaptability could level any playing field. Elara's eyes scanned the stars, distant points of light flickering like distant eyes watching, waiting. Somewhere, the hunter was planning her next move, unaware that the humans had already learned too much. Humans had proven that even in the void of space, against a predator who had never faced them before, they could adapt, survive, and even triumph. And in that understanding, Elara felt a thrill of hope. The Orion sector had become a battlefield not just of technology and strength, but of mind and spirit. Humans had survived the first real test. They had turned the hunter's game against her, and they were ready for whatever came next. The Orion sector would test them again, but humans had shown what they were capable of. They had survived, adapted, and pushed back. The hunter may have believed herself unstoppable, but she had underestimated the most dangerous force of all, human ingenuity. Elara looked at Mara one last time before turning back to the control console. We have learned. We have adapted. We have survived.
And when she comes again, we will be ready. The hunter may have thought she was in control, but humans are always unpredictable.
And she is about to discover that she is not the only hunter in the Orion sector. The Orion sector was quiet, but the calm was heavy. Like the air before a storm, Captain Elara Voss moved through the colony with measured steps, her mind already calculating the next battle. Humans had survived the first encounters, adapted to the hunter's tactics, and even begun to turn her strategies against her. But Elara knew the final challenge was coming. The hunter would return stronger, smarter, and more ruthless than ever, and humans would be ready. The preparations were immense. Every ship, every drone, every sensor in the colony was repositioned for maximum efficiency. Humans had learned to think like predators, predicting every possible move the hunter could make. The derelict asteroid station had been rebuilt and fortified, becoming a deadly maze of traps and countermeasures. Sensors were hidden in every corridor, mines concealed in the shadows, and decoy signals broadcast constantly. The humans were ready to fight not just with firepower, but with intelligence, strategy, and unpredictability. Elara gathered her strike team one last time. This is the culmination, she said. She thinks she has the advantage, but we have learned from her. Every attack she makes, every calculation she performs, has taught us something new. She is clever, but humans are cleverer. We will demonstrate what she underestimated all along. Her team nodded, determination shining in their eyes. They had survived impossible odds, adapted, and thrived under Elara's leadership. They were not just soldiers or colonists. They were humans in the purest sense, inventive, resilient, and fearless. The first sign of the hunter's return was subtle, a ripple in the asteroid belt, a flicker in the energy readings, a shadow moving with impossible speed. She was coming, precise and silent, a predator who had yet to meet her match. But humans were waiting, ready to turn her own strategy against her. The initial clash began in the outer reaches of the belt. The hunter tested the defenses, probing with energy pulses to detect hidden ships and traps. Humans responded with carefully orchestrated decoys, false energy signatures, and misdirection. Each attack forced her to adapt, each adaptation revealing her weaknesses. Elara watched from the command console, analyzing every movement. She's fast, but not perfect, she said calmly. Humans think unpredictably. She cannot anticipate every decision we make. That's our strength. That's why we survive. That's why we will win. Her strike team moved through the asteroid station, coordinating perfectly with the fleet outside. Every corridor, every chamber, every opening was a calculated opportunity. Mines detonated with precise timing, forcing the hunter into narrow corridors. Drones simulated human presence, drawing her into traps. And humans waited patiently, striking only when the predator was vulnerable. The hunter became increasingly aggressive. Her movements were calculated but desperate, striking with precision, yet failing to gain control. Humans anticipated each adjustment, forcing her into zones where her speed and technology were nullified by clever engineering and human intuition. At one point, the hunter attempted a direct attack on the colony's core. She surged through the asteroid belt, energy blades lashing out to destroy ships and sensors. But humans were ready. Alara had anticipated this move. The fleet responded with synchronized maneuvers, drawing her into a chamber lined with hidden charges. The corridor narrowed, forcing her to slow. Energy nets and decoys disoriented her sensors, leaving her vulnerable. Alara's voice came over the comms. You may be strong, precise, and fast, but you cannot match human ingenuity. Every move you make has taught us something. Every calculation has become our advantage. You are clever, but humans are cleverer, and we will not be defeated. The hunter faltered for a moment, her systems disrupted by the combined effects of human strategy. For the first time, she realized that humans were not merely reacting. They were controlling the engagement. They had turned her hunting ground into a trap of intelligence and improvisation. Alara led a small strike team deeper into the asteroid station, moving silently but decisively. They placed charges, adjusted sensors, and prepared the final phase of their plan. Every movement was a lesson in human cunning, every step a demonstration that instinct and adaptability could overcome raw power. The hunter realized too late that she had been funneled into the center of the station. Mines exploded around her, energy nets entangled her, and drones simulated human reinforcements in every direction. The predator struck out wildly, trying to escape, but humans anticipated her every move. She was fast, but the humans were patient, methodical, and unpredictable. Alara and her team confronted the hunter directly in a narrow chamber. The predator's sensors flickered as she realized she could not maneuver freely. Humans struck from hidden positions, using environmental advantages to keep her off balance. Energy traps forced her to divert, while decoys created illusions of human presence. The hunter had underestimated human creativity, intuition, and courage. Hours passed in a tense and deadly stalemate. The hunter adapted, but humans adapted faster. Every countermeasure she attempted was met with human improvisation. The battle became not one of raw power, but of intellect, strategy, and spirit. Humans were proving definitively that they could challenge the most advanced predator in the galaxy. Finally, the hunter attempted a desperate retreat. She surged toward the outer asteroid belt, seeking to escape the human traps. But Alara had anticipated this. Hidden charges detonated, debris blocked her path, and drones forced her into a narrow channel where her speed became a liability. She was trapped, not by force alone, but by human ingenuity, coordination, and adaptation. Alara's voice echoed in her comms. You underestimated humans. You thought you could control, predict, and dominate us. But humans are unpredictable. We think, we adapt, and we act. We survive, and we win. The hunter paused, assessing the situation, realizing that every advantage she had counted on had been neutralized. She had underestimated humans, underestimated their ability to learn, improvise, and work together. For the first time, she faced a species that could match her intellect, strategy, and determination. The final phase of the plan was executed. Charges detonated in precise sequence, forcing the hunter into a narrow chamber where escape was impossible. Drones created illusions of human presence in every direction. Energy nets and barriers confined her movements, leaving her vulnerable to human tactics. She struck out with everything she had, but it was too late. Humans had anticipated her every move. Elara's strike team moved in for the final engagement. They did not attack recklessly. Every step was calculated to maintain advantage and ensure survival. The hunter attempted to fight back, but humans were everywhere, unpredictable, and relentless. Every strike she made was countered, every movement anticipated, every calculation undone by human ingenuity. Finally, the hunter realized defeat. She had been outsmarted, outmaneuvered, and forced to retreat. Humans had demonstrated their strength not through raw power, but through intelligence, adaptability, and courage. They had survived every test, turned every trap to their advantage, and proven that even the most advanced predator could be challenged. Elara watched as the hunter retreated into the void, energy readings fading as she disappeared into the asteroid belt. Humans had won. The Orion sector was safe, at least for now. But more importantly, humans had demonstrated what they were capable of. They had survived impossible odds, adapted faster than any predator expected, and emerged victorious through strategy, courage, and ingenuity. The colony erupted in quiet celebration. Revivers repaired damage, recalibrated defenses, and shared stories of bravery. Humans had survived not just because of weapons, but because of their minds and their spirit. They had proven that courage, intellect, and teamwork could overcome even the most fearsome predator. Elara moved through the colony, acknowledging every effort, every contribution. She had led them, but humans had triumphed because they were capable, resourceful, and determined. Humans had survived, adapted, and now they had won. As night fell over the Orion sector, Elara stood at the observation platform, looking at the distant stars. Somewhere out there, the hunter was recalculating, learning from her defeat, perhaps preparing for another encounter. But humanity had already demonstrated the truth. Humans were unpredictable, intelligent, and unstoppable when united. They were survivors, thinkers, and hunters in their own right. Elara whispered, almost to herself, "We have survived. We have adapted. We have triumphed. And we have shown the hunter that humans are not prey. We are hunters, and we always will be." The Orion sector was quiet, but the calm carried a new meaning. Humans had proven their worth. They had faced the impossible, learned from every test, and emerged stronger. They had demonstrated that even the most advanced predator could be challenged when humans worked together, adapted quickly, and refused to surrender. Elara's gaze swept over the colony, every light, every movement, a testament to human resilience. The hunter had been defeated, but humans had gained something greater than victory. They had gained confidence, unity, and proof of their own ingenuity. They had survived the ultimate test and demonstrated that they were capable of far more than anyone, even a predator, had imagined. The Orion sector stretched endlessly into the void, silent and infinite. Humans had survived the hunt, adapted, and triumphed. And, somewhere, far beyond the stars, the hunter would remember the lesson she had learned. Underestimating humans was a mistake no predator could afford to make twice. Elara took a deep breath, the weight of responsibility and the thrill of triumph filling her mind. The colony had survived, and humanity had proven itself. The hunter had tested them, but humans had risen above, demonstrating the true strength of their species: courage, intellect, and the relentless will to survive. And in the quiet of space, as the stars shimmered above, humans knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would endure, adapt, and prevail. They had faced the hunter, and they had shown that humans were not prey. They were hunters, thinkers, and survivors, and they would always be ready for whatever came next.